Hello, my name is Craig Hanna. I'm a product manager at Metso, and today we're going to talk about configuring and calibrating a Metso Microwave Total Solids Analyzer. In just a few minutes, we'll show you how to configure, how to calibrate, and also collect follow-up samples and enter an offset if necessary. And we're going to have the use of our Metso flow loop, which is going to be our process, and the beads are going to represent the solids. So let's begin by configuring a Metso TS. So now we're going to configure our Metso TS, and the first thing you do is you're on the main menu here. All you do is hit escape, then go to number 2, configuration. And the first thing we're going to look at is number 1, your output signal, and that's basically your solids output signal. We're going to specify the range here, and in this example we want it to be configured, the range set from 1% to 4%, and the dampening or filtering we're going to leave it 1 second. And there's also a fault signal, so if there was a diagnostic error, the fault signal would give an output of 3.7. You have an option of also freezing the output or giving an output of 22.5 in error condition. For our case, we're going to keep a 3.7 milliamp output. We're going to go ahead and edit, save it. That's also a save button. Escape. So we set output 1 right there for solids. Then there's output 2, which you can have a temperature output or a conductivity output as a second output. Then we go to number 3, user settings. You're going to hit edit, save. It's going to take you up to a trend interval. That's simply how the frequency of the diagnostic outputs to the transmitter. We're not going to change that. If you want to change the position or tag number, you can do that. That would be displayed on the main menu. We're going to keep it in English. And then your TS units can be either percent solids or grams per liter. We're going to keep ours in percent solids. And then one other unit we want to change is temperature. We're going to keep it in Fahrenheit, but you can change it to Celsius. So we accept all those changes, hit save, and escape out of there. Now we set the clock, and it's very important to set the clock. Today is the 16th and is in European format. So it'll be 16/10/12, October 16th, 2012. If you did want to change it, again, you just hit edit, and we just scroll through those and change them if we need to. And the time is accurate. So if any changes were made, we can just hit the save button, hit escape, and now we've configured the Metso TS. Very easy to do. So let's say we're ready to calibrate the unit. We hit escape, we go to that sub-menu, we hit number 1, calibrate. And what we're going to do is an initial calibration, which is going to set the signal strength for your process. So you go into the initial calibrations under sample taking. It's ready to do it. It says hit the sample button when you're ready to take a sample. I hit the sample button, I walk over, take my sample. When I'm done, I come back and hit the sample button again. And it logs this data for us. And I escape back to the main menu. I go to the lab, I process the sample, and when I get the sample back from the lab, I go back into calibration, enter lab results, and go ahead and enter the lab value. The lab said it was 2.00. I hit edit, save, I escape out of there, and then the transmitter will come up reading close to 2% based on actual process conditions. But on this initial calibration, how do we know that this was a good calibration? Well, we take follow-up samples. How do you take a follow-up sample? Very simple. You don't have to go into the calibration menu right here. You don't go into there. But you go, all you do is to take a follow-up sample after the initial calibration, you hit the sample button. Go take your sample, hit your sample button again. It will give you the TS, what the TS was measuring while you took the sample. Now I would write that value down. It will store it in the transmitter, but I would write that down and collect multiple samples before we make any changes to the offset. For example, if we collected 10 samples and the average offset of all those 10 samples was 0.47, I would go into the calibration menu, go into offset correction. Again, we're not going into number 1 or number 2. That's the initial calibration. I would go into offset correction, come in here and put 0.47, edit save it, and come back, and you'll see my transmitter has now made that change. In review of our calibration for the Metso TS, we see that we took an initial calibration here. The Metso TS was measuring 1.54. The lab result was 2.00. We entered that 2.00 in the lab function under the calibration menu. Then we took further follow-up samples. Our first follow-up sample, the TS was reading 1.81. The lab result came back 2.35, and the difference was a 0.54. Now, of course, we did not enter this into the offset function, but what we did is we took multiple samples here. And after we took multiple samples, in this example we took 10 samples, the average offset was 0.47. And that's the value we entered into the offset function earlier in the video. So if we follow this, we're really allowing statistics to work for us, and we can be assured that our Metso TS will measure accurately. All at Metso would like to thank you.